In this session, we're going to be talking specifically about resilience as it relates to agriculture and nutrition, thinking about both stressors that can impact food security and nutrition, and also strategies to improve resilience, thinking about it in terms of shocks and stresses that particularly affect Nepal. We will be talking about livelihood strategies, risk reduction, measurement of resilience, social and physical infrastructure, as well as enabling policies within the Nepal context. For this session, I will be introducing Sharma from Save the Children, who will be speaking about the Sabal project, particularly. Abid Hussain from Isimode, Hari Bahadur Kesi, Joint Secretary with the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, and Kiran Oja from Lutheran World Relief. We have a couple of presentations that I hope will be very energizing, and we will also then have some discussion to follow. So with that, I'd like to introduce Sriju Sharma of Save the Children with the Sabal project.
I'm going to briefly talk about our approach and what are the key results and also the learnings. Just to give you a brief context how or where Sabal operated, this graph shows the shocks or stresses experienced by the households, and this is a comparison between our baseline study, which was done in 2015. You can see in blue the baseline findings, and compared to our recent annual monitoring survey findings. So. Right after Sabal started implementation, there was a huge earthquake. And as a result, you can see that in the baseline, almost all of the households in the Sabal districts, they reported that they were affected by the earthquake. And but in these 5 years, the context has slightly changed. Now, you don't see earthquake as a major shock for the households. But still, you can see that drought or insufficient rain, pest or disease outbreak, and flooding and landslides. It still remains as a major shocks, and we'd like to believe that these are more of a stressors than the shocks. So what I'm trying to say here is resilience is contextual. The single shock, one shock, can affect different populations or different groups in various ways. So this is the Sabal resilience model. We have this integrated multi-label approach, which we expected to strengthen the capacities of households, individuals, community, and systems at the different levels. And each and every activity in Sabal was designed in such a way that these activities contribute to at least one of these capacities at different level. Talking about key results, I just want to reiterate that measuring resilience is not an easy task. It's very complex, and there is no single indicator that we can use to measure a resilience, or there is not one wide accepted way to measure resiliency. It requires huge amount of time, huge amount of data, and a lot of human resources, and not to mention the cost. So, most in these kind of programs, mostly the resilience modules, the resilience indicators, they are designed only at the baseline and the end line. However, like in Sabal, what we did was we were just tracking the progress of the resilience sub-indicators through different mechanisms, to our annual monitoring surveys, to our other annual monitoring mechanisms. And the results are very encouraging. I'll talk about these results and learnings in discussions rounds as well. But our key learning was, to make the resilience programming effective, there should be a multi-sectoral integrated approach. Our study also finds, finds that those households who receive multiple intervention were better, were well enough at the end of the project. For example, the households have a higher dietary diversity score and lower coping strategy index than the households who received only one intervention. So, and also targeting was equally important, and there are other learnings as well, which I'll discuss in our Q&A session. Because of the very short time, I'd like to end my presentation here. Happy to discuss more.
It's a kind of experiences while working at Isimode. In last 7 years, I have been leading the food security and nutrition component within Isimode and worked in 7-8 member countries. So mainly we adopted three approaches to understand the linkages between agriculture, nutrition and resilience. One very conventional approach of food security assessment, multidimensional approach of food security. And fourth dimension is on food stability. First one, availability, accessibility, utilization and stability. So while understanding the linkages of resilience, we bring fourth dimension stability on forefront. Assessing the risks, uncertainties and shocks, present shocks, and forecasting the future scenarios and their possible impacts on food availability, all other three dimensions, availability, accessibility and utilization, because fourth dimension is cross-cutting. This is one approach. And defining the indicators very centric around the stability dimension of food security, not forgetting the other three dimensions. Second approach, agrobiodiversity approach. Some school of thought, some scientists, they think take care of agrobiodiversity and it will take care of resilience of food systems itself. How? If we diversify the agriculture system, for example, from narrow range of crops, narrow range of options to broader range of options. For example, instead of 3-4 crops, in agriculture system, we promote a traditional food crop, medicinal plants, and some non-agriculture tree plants also. So it will provide more flexibility to that socio-ecological system. For example, if some shock, some hazard hit that area, farmers and communities will have more options to survive. If crops are damaged, they may have livestock to cope with the shocks, right? And not forgetting the other ecosystem services like sporting services, regulating services and cultural services. Means promoting pollination, soil protection, soil fertility and other affiliated services also. It will also ultimately provide more options. For example, if we take care of pollination services through honeybee, it's a supplementary income source also. It will also result in better productivity, especially for fruit production. There are evidences we have from Indian Himalayas that apple production increase through integration of honeybee farming and all that in local systems. So we think, based on our experiences, promoting agrobiodiversity may result in better income, good options, flexibility in terms of crops, right, enterprises. It may also increase the flexibility and options for farmers and policy makers also, right? And third approach we are using, that is systems approach. Systems approach is not very new. It's I think decade or more than decade it's older, but operationalizing this approach for resilience building is very important. For example, in systems approach, factors, causes and effects, everything is very dynamic. We don't have quantitative indicators like very conventional multidimensional food security approach or agrobiodiversity approach. We have to observe the processes, right? We have to see all causes and effects in one socio-ecological system. For example, again, I will give the example of traditional food crops. For example, now there is site A, right? In that site, farmers are cultivating only popular crops and cash crops very dominantly. They have forgotten the traditional food crops. What implication it had on health and nutrition? Moving from diverse traditional cropping systems to cash crops, it has resulted in decline in dietary diversity. It's likely to impact the nutrition and health status of people. So in systems approach, we observe the positive feedbacks and negative feedbacks. If health and nutrition security is deteriorating, it means it's negative feedback. We have to plan actions to cope with this negative feedback, right? If we are shifting from diverse food crops to very narrow range of few popular cereals, it will also increase dependency on external food item. If some hazard happen in that area, bridges are broken, roads are eroded, that community will be very vulnerable. Even if they have money, they have financial resources, they don't have physical access to food. It will be a problem. So in systems approach, we identify the positive and negative feedbacks. Within negative feedbacks, we identify the most sensitive feedbacks. We call it resilient markers, right? As Kore mentioned, systems resilience in systems resilience sequencing. It's a kind of same thing with different terms and approach, different lens, that we call those marker resilient. Very sensitive items or factors we bring forefront and we deal those first. So these are the approaches we are using. Thank you very much. Time is short.
Let's move straight on then to Dr. Hari Bahadur Kesi, Joint Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development.
I will talk a bit some of the things that Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development is concerned to the food and nutrition security of the country. As a ministry, we have to look after the whole nation. So I don't have very specific project learnings or things like that, results like that. So I will talk a bit on the policy frameworks that are linked with food and nutrition security of the country. I will briefly talk on that, and I will a bit talk on the program and activities that we are working and some of the issues. I will not talk very much on others. Basically, as you have heard from yesterday till today, many issues of Nepalese agriculture also. Before designing any interventions, we have to know our agriculture setup also and our social setup also, because most of the farmers Nepal are small and medium holders. They have less land holding, and they mostly the agriculture is integrated in, and it is dominated from mountain agriculture. So we have to keep in mind this agricultural setup while developing any policy or program intervention. So in the ministry, while developing any policy or any other interventions, we look these issues too. And our agriculture is very diverse, and we have almost all crops. They are grown in the world, and the size of the land holding and the size of agriculture business is also very diverse, because we cannot make a policy that one size fits all. We cannot do that, because there are many farmers who are landless or very less land. Some are mid-level land holding, and some are big farmers, which are very few. So we have to think all these farmers while making any policy and while implementing them. So basically, our agriculture is guided by National Agriculture Policy, and more strategically, it is agriculture development strategy, that we say ADS, and which is framed for 20 years. And our all programs and activity are designed which are linked with ADS. So moreover, in ADS there are many activities and many interventions that are envisioned for food and nutrition security of the country, because one of the first impact is food and nutrition security for all of these components. And in ADS, we have set the targets, indicators for nutrition level also. That is for stunting, it is 8% in 2035, stunting under 5 years. And underweight is 5%, wasting 1%, and so on. So this is our target, and our all activities are guided by this target for food and nutrition security. Currently, as we know, the country has undergone with restructuring process, and our administration is also on the restructuring process. The federal ministry is in the position to prepare policies, to prepare guidelines, different directives, and all these things. And most of the agriculture service delivery works has gone to provincial level and local level government. So now the issue here is we have to work with local level government and province level government to have good result. In federal level, we are more on policy, policy designing or some other issues we deal here. So there are some works that we are working right now, because we have to align our federal policies to province level policies, and we have to align federal vision to province and local level vision. So we are working on that, because local level is responsible for all these things. So some of the issues just I wanted to inform here is often you see agriculture has not given much importance in nutritional issues. So what we think is agriculture should be the basic for nutrition in the country like Nepal, because almost 2/3 of the population is engaged in agriculture, and they can have their own kitchen garden, they can have their own fruit trees, they can have backyard poultry, and they can have animals. And so we have to see the sources of nutrition from agriculture, and we have to focus on agriculture for nutrition purpose. That I want to elaborate here also. And also we are, as the agriculture ministry, we have responsibility to regulate the processed food also. That yesterday also maybe the Director General of Department of Food Technology, I have a presentation, she has mentioned about that also. So we are linked with regulation also, the regulation of pesticide for food safety, regulation of hormones, nutrients, and also the other processed food. These are the things that we are going to work with our government, local level government. And we are working in federal level with all other development partners that are working on food and nutrition sector. Maybe Feed the Future is one of the program that USAID is funding, and also there are many other development partners. They are working on food and nutrition security that we are linked with, and we are a very strong partner for that also. So for it is a multi-stakeholder involvement issue. For nutrition, we have to work all the government, 3 tiers of government, the social organizations, INGOs, development partners, we have to work together. And for the issues of household nutrition, we have to focus. What I think is we have to focus on some of the campaigns at the local level. Maybe the focus should be children and women, because kitchen is in the control of women and mothers in Nepal mostly. So we have to aware them, and we need some behavioral change at that level also. So our focus is to work in coordination with other stakeholders at that level. So with this, I will stop here. If we need some more discussion, I will be available. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for helping set some of this agenda for us going forward and describing that. And in particular, I think some of the messages around working with government at all levels now with the federal system, I think will resonate very well with everyone here. Now may I introduce Kiran Ojha from Lutheran World Relief, who will be speaking about flood-resilient livelihoods.
No, we have been working on a flood resilience project in Nepal, and we have been covering 3 river basins, and we have been working in partnership with Oxfam and DCA in the Kosi River Basin, and WHH in the Kamala River Basin, and we have identified like 6 areas where, yeah, 6 areas for working to make a community of flood resilience, and we popularly call it as a 6-pillar approach. And let me run through yeah. And we have been working in 6 areas like early warning systems, CBDRM, community-based disaster risk management, infrastructure, resilient infrastructure, safety net, livelihood, and public-private partnership. And these are the 6 areas. And for the interest of time, I have drawn upon just the resilient livelihood part for today. And yeah, as I told before, we have been working in 3 river basins, and we have been working on the either side of the border. We have been working in the Indian communities as well as Nepali communities as well. We have office in India, and we have been working on the both sides of the border. And yeah, what happens when there is a flooding in the community? The issues are water gets contaminated, vegetables die, stored grains are either soaked or washed away, some houses collapse, and everybody knows these things. And the traditional solutions have been relief, just to go with the chow chow or the chura and distribute it, or and the program after the flood enters into the community. But be prepared beforehand is better, but how? That's the question for any sort of resilience work related to food security and the nutrition. But yeah. And for the adaptation, increasing the platform of the these tube wells is very important. It ensures the clean water supply in the community, and just you put some chlorine or the disinfectant, then the water becomes safe for to drink. And storing grains, you can just modify a little bit on the traditional storage system. You just raise the traditional storage bin, and you can help community just to store their grains or the seeds properly. And this one is a community building. We had a partnership with the local municipalities, and they were happy to offer 75% of the cost of the building. And when there is, and the water level is very high, people can run into these buildings, and a significant amount of the money comes from the government. And this one is because of the construction of the dams and the dikes, many of the areas are inundated for the whole summer. Yeah, with the light rain, even with the light rain, the area gets flooded, and the people are can have the rice that tolerates the flooding. But what to do with the vegetable? And we just promoted this this technique, we call it the hanging garden, and the people can use the containers or the buckets, whatever they have, and then fix it in the pole, and just let the vines of the creepers. It's basically for the creepers, and let the vines go in the trellis. Yeah, do you say trellis? Or I don't know the exact English word for this. The machan, I guess it's a trellis. And that's how you can ensure the supply of the vegetables, even in the when there is an inundation. And we tested it for some time, but it became popular. You can see people are replicating that throughout. And this is this is the nursery, and you can see the plants. Yeah. And this is raised, they are 2 or 3 feet above the ground, and you can make a little tweak in your programming, and how you can ensure the supply of the vegetable in the community. And this is like when there is a flood, instead of providing grains to every family, you can just encourage community to have a community kitchen. And it's a easier solution than providing each and every family with all the things. Then you can just have a community kitchen, and these are the children and the elderly people who are living in these safe shelters. And the livestock are also the important part of the community assets, and it contributes a lot into the economy of in the community. So the saving the livestock is also important. So if when you make a shelter, like you can raise the floor a little bit, and you can keep the livestock in the underneath, and people can live upstairs, and that's how we have been doing. And this is like for the small farmers, you can have model farms, and where the dikes are raised, and you have a pond, and because of the pond, like you can control water somehow, and you can even plant the banana trees on the dikes, and you can have a chicken and all that. So it ensures that the nutrition supply at the community. And for the bigger farmers, like this is the flood tolerant variety of the rice. And NAC has released several varieties that can withstand flood. With that, I'll end my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer if you have.
I would like to open up with a first question. Now, all of our presentations, for the most part, we've spoken quite a lot around resilient livelihoods, and in particular, Kiranji, I appreciated the visual aspect of that, to be able to see some of these interventions so colorfully. And yet we really are here to speak about nutrition. So I'd be curious to know from the programmatic side, how are we interpreting resilient nutrition, and are we implementing that in ways in these projects that we've been talking about? Maybe we could start at that end and come back this way.
We don't have a standalone project on nutrition, but still, we have a nutrition-sensitive agriculture, and we have this sort of when there is a kitchen garden or the model farm, we consider the supply of the grain, vegetable, and you can see the chicken and duck, and that's for the protein, and the banana and the other fruit trees like the papaya and all that. So we have been doing a nutrition sensitive agriculture, and for the measurement, we just measure the dietary diversity, not like other tools of the measuring, like malnutrition.
Regarding nutrition sensitive agriculture and its promotion, I mentioned earlier that ADS has a flagship program on food and nutrition security. So we have, in link with that, government of Nepal, our ministry has already finished a project on agriculture and food security project in mid and western region, and in 19 districts. It was focused on food and nutrition security in the household level. And currently we are, our another project is running on food and nutrition security, which is focused on earthquake affected and flood affected 8 districts in Nepal. And in recent years, we are more concerned about the safe food production, which is linked with, of course, nutrition and food security. We are promoting organic agriculture, good agriculture practices in the field level. And we had a mission karyakram. We have a mission karyakram from last year to promote organic agriculture. In the meantime, we are also promoting indigenous food crops, their production, and also their marketing, their promotion, making different items and other things. With regards to food and nutrition, there should be some sort of special programs that should focus on a specific area. Besides different development partners working, we are from the government side is also working to promote food and nutrition security and nutrition sensitive agriculture in the country. Thank you.
ECMOD is working on nutrition aspect of agriculture. Through agrobiodiversity approach, we are promoting traditional food crops. Now these crops are officially relabeled as future smart foods because of their importance for nutrition, resilience, and potential to improve income. So what we are doing, we are promoting traditional crops like buckwheat, barley, sorghum, local beans, and other local varieties of rice like brown rice. They have better nutritional value compared to popular cereals. So what we are doing, we are doing action research and pilots in different countries, in Nepal, in Pakistan at the moment we are doing in Bhutan and Myanmar, testing the impacts of mainstreaming these crops in agricultural systems and impacts on food and nutritional aspects, right? Not only we are working on supply side, it's supply side convincing farmers to grow these crops, it will not work. So we are working on demand side also, behavior change for consumers, and convincing governments to bring these crops in their policies and programs also. Because mostly dominant cereals are very prominent in policies, like in Nepal, rice is very prominent crop. In India and Pakistan, rice and wheat are very prominent crops. So some incentives and institutional mechanisms, some support price systems are very much required for these traditional crops. And research institutions are also required to do research to improve the varieties of traditional crop. Nepal is a leader in this term. They have gene bank and all that, they are doing effort. So we are working with government institutions also, demand side also, in addition to working with farmers to mainstream these crops, to influence nutrition and health of communities. Thank you.
And of course, we also have a separate health and nutrition component in Sabal. And most of the activities in health and nutrition component are similar to Suahara project. And being an integrated project, what we've learned is only providing chickens or vegetable seeds as an input, or only training them, training the households to rear the poultry or to have that, diverse garden, homestead garden, is not enough unless you link that with the access to markets and other livelihoods and other agriculture, productions. So in our case also, because it was integrated project, it was easier for us to have that link, with the nutrition to the agriculture, because then when we teach or when we train our 1,000 days mother groups to produce these diverse nutrient-dense vegetables, we also tell them if they have a surplus, where to go and sell those products. So I think having this integrated approach really helps in nutrition. And for the future programming also, you should really consider that as well. And our findings, our monitoring findings, we call them technical support visits. These TSV findings also show that the communication, social communication behavior change, that also worked very effectively. When you give them the message, really enforce the message of your promoted behaviors, activities, it's really effective. And that's seen in the nutritional outcomes as well.
I can speak for a moment about the Anukulan project, which in terms of resilience, measured resilience through a unique indicator. This was promoted through the Global BRACED program by DFID, but we developed a unique index which did include child nutritional status and also household dietary diversity scores as components in terms of measurement within this larger index. Specifically looking at change over time, so households could rise in the index if each component rose over time. But like Sriju was saying, we also had a very integrated project. The nutrition component was led by NTAG, obviously a Nutrition Innovation Lab partner. And so I think very strong nutrition and health component within Anukulan. One thing that distinguished some of the programming, I think, for that was that we were experimenting with a market-based approach. IDE tends to take a market-based approach to everything because we see those as those kinds of approaches as being sustainable economically. And so we were promoting, for example, packages of nutritious foods to farmers for production. We were also training market actors along value chains, market actors who then could also be promoting more nutritious foods, trying to create the demand by influencing the supply, in other words. And it was an interesting experiment. It's something that I haven't seen done in other projects, and I think it was moderately successful, but we don't have very easy metrics to be able to measure it. Right. Well, thank you very much. I think that's it for this panel. I want to thank every member of the panel. Thank you to the audience as well.